The risks here are enormous, chief among them Trump using this awkward 11th hour alliance to energize supporters in all the remaining primary states. What's more, Elaine, there is no polling data to suggest Kasich supporters are willing or even eager to vote for Cruz or vice versa.
Major, as you know, Cruz and Kasich announced this to much fanfare on Sunday, but it already seems to be falling apart. Here's what Governor Kasich told reporters on Monday.
I don't see this as any big deal, other than the fact that I'm not going to spend resources in Indiana. He's not going to spend them in other places. So what? What's the big deal?
So who should your supporters vote for in Indiana?
Well, I've never told them not to vote for me. They ought to vote for me. But I'm not over there campaigning and spending resources.
All right, Major. So will this actually work?
Well, interestingly enough, Elaine, by the time Governor Kasich got here to Rockville, Maryland, and talked to me, his campaign had sort of tightened down on him. And I asked him repeatedly, who should voters in Indiana inclined to support you vote for? He said, I'm not going to give them any instructions. I'm not going to tell them what to do. They can figure out what to do. So he tried to back away from backing away from this alliance. It's very awkward. All of this is. What is so obvious about this maneuver, this gambit, is it's forced, it's unwelcome, and it's hard to put together. And it's hard to communicate for either campaign, Cruz or Kasich, what their supporters ought to do. Because if you've been or consider yourself even a remotely loyal Kasich or Cruz supporter, you've already ruled the other guy out. They are operating under different approaches to this nomination. They are offering themselves as different kind of candidates, alternatives to one another, in addition to being alternatives to Trump. And the other problem with this alliance, Elaine, is that it makes so visibly clear something that Kasich and Cruz have denied up until last night. This. Their campaigns are about their message and about their prospects for the nomination. Only half and half now, because this gambit means their campaigns are also, at least almost entirely now, about stopping Trump, not advancing their own cause. That's another thing that complicates their political messaging and makes all of this not only unprecedented, but hard to work out.
So, Major, I guess the question a lot of people are wondering, if Cruz and Kasich could stick to the plan, would it even work from a mathematical standpoint?
Well, look, Trump has a path to 1,237 delegates. It's not an easy one. And the Cruz campaign had long ago, and by that I mean a couple of weeks ago, looked at Indiana as a crucial potential break point for Trump's momentum. They knew he would win New York. They felt he was very well positioned, as indeed he is, to win the 5 states conducting primaries tomorrow. So they needed a break in the action. They needed a state where there were a good number of delegates, in this case 57 in Indiana, and ideological terrain, Midwest, kind of like Wisconsin, also with Republicans who tend to be more conservative than moderate, where the Cruz message could work. So they wanted Indiana to be a place to take on Trump and try to halt, or certainly at least at minimum blunt, his momentum. Now they have what they wanted, a one-on-one race to say to all Indiana Republicans, if you want to stop Trump, if you're unnerved by Trump being the nominee of the Republican Party, here is your place to do it. Kasich's not part of the equation. Let's see what happens. That is a strategy that does make some sense, but the other risk it carries with it is if it fails, then the Cruz campaign will have been exposed as one that simply cannot stop Donald Trump, and that will dramatically reduce his ability to garner support, both financially and otherwise, in California and other primary states to follow.
Major, we've learned Ted Cruz is vetting Carly Fiorina as a pick for vice president. What would be the strategy there?
Well, as I mentioned on CBS this morning, the name most frequently mentioned as a potential running mate for Cruz is Carly Fiorina. Fiorina has been the most active, the most visible, and within the Cruz circle, most successful surrogate for Ted Cruz since she aligned herself with the campaign after dropping out of this race. And the strategy there would be a couple of fold, and they might announce this in advance of the Indiana primary. One, to gain media attention, to break the cycle of news about all of Trump's victories on the Tuesday primaries, and inject another element of conservative mobilization in Indiana. Carly Fiorina, despite the fact that she did not do well in the primaries, still is a favorite among grassroots conservatives, particularly those in the pro-life movement. And adding Fiorina to the mix might increase Cruz's ability to mobilize those voters in Indiana. It's not clear he's going to do that, but I can tell you the campaign is very seriously thinking about announcing its running mate And the most likely person, though this is certainly not a lead pipe cinch, is Fiorina.
All right, Major Garrett reporting. Major, thanks so much.
Sure.